Okay, kita kembali bersama Telaah seperti mana saya selalu war-warkan. Di Telaah kami sudah di telaah.my di website telah pun banyak kami kongsikan beberapa judul yang kami anggap penting untuk dikongsikan. Dan Telaah ini kepada yang baru saja menjengah dan mengunjungi kami, ia diinspirasikan oleh PMX, telah pun dilancarkan oleh PMX, dipacu oleh KPT, Kementerian Pendidikan Tinggi. Dan kami juga menawarkan kepada penonton, kalau ingin mencadangkan judul naskah yang sesuai untuk diangkat, boleh dicadangkan, hantarkan ke email info@telaah.my. Sama ada anda merupakan penulisnya ataupun anda ingin mengulas mana-mana buku. Dan sejurus kalau anda mengunjungi ke website, anda akan melihat judul-judul yang telah dicadangkan, anda akan dapat gambaran buku-buku yang mungkin sesuai. Dan pada hari ini kita memilih salah satu buku. Tetamu saya, SHAUN Kwa. SHAUN, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Okay, Sean. Okay, let me do a little bit of background. Sean Kwa is a young graduate of from Oxford, and you are president of exco member of Oxbridge Association, Malaysia.
I was president of the student association.
Okay,
you were
okay.
And when I came back, I became exco member of the alumni association, the Malaysian Alumni Association.
Okay. So before we begin, we deep dive into the book itself. So, by the way, the book chosen by Sean is Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. It's a very interesting book. But before we move on, explain about Merbau Institute. You are the founder of Merbau Institute.
So Merbau Institute is new. Merbau is the name of the national tree.
Okay.
But we try to also touch on issues in the region. Our focus or our shtick or our core competency is to look at progress. And complex systems. So I think complex systems, I may need to explain a bit, and it does have something to do with the book.
Okay.
So it's not going on a tangent. Complex systems are basically, there are many examples of complex systems. So for example, pandemics, free markets, cities that are not planned. So Kuala Lumpur, for example, is one. They all exhibit different kind of dynamism, different nuances, different patterns, despite there being no designer. Right? There's no top-down imposed order. A lot of things emerge bottom-up. And that's one of the hallmarks of complex systems. It's not limited to just political, economic, or even scientific. Because the idea is that there's an underlying unity to all of these different systems. Right? So keywords, complex system, things will emerge bottom-up.
Nevertheless, this is still book review.
Yes, it's a book review.
We're going to discuss about tipping point.
It is relevant to book review.
Let's talk about this before we move on with the book review. We're going to have a collaboration with your NGO, some kind of club. Explain a bit more about that.
Okay, so one of the projects that we are doing is, because we try not to just think, we also try to think and do. We are doing an essay competition for 17 to 18-year-olds. There's a range of topics around the themes that we are talking about. And we are collaborating with Telaah because at the same time as we promote books, we also want kids to write about them in a critical way, to engage with them critically. So this competition is open to anyone who is 17, 18-year-old in Malaysia who has not started university yet. So the link will be, I think,
we're going to show the link.
We're going to show the link.
The idea is to allow you do this kind of promotion, because we want to get more collaborations with, if you have book clubs, you know. So we would want to expand Telaah so that it's about community development. It's Telaah community, as we call it. So if you have an idea of how we can collaborate, just like what Sean did, so he's the president of the club, so he's here today. Now let's move on to the book itself.
Great.
Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. I suppose most of our viewers know already about Tipping Point. Well, Malcolm has quite a number of good books. We have Outliers and Blink as well. But you choose to discuss Tipping Point. Why is that?
Tipping Point is basically about how and why things spread. And things, again, because Institut Merbau is not just about politics, not about economics, it's really, Gladwell covers a wide range of phenomenon in the book. He talks about why certain brands suddenly explode in virality. He talks about why, unfortunately, there are also many kind of negative phenomena. So, for example, why pandemics spread, why certain STDs spread. He talks about why certain children's programs are very successful, right? So his point is that underlying all of these is that there are some fundamental logics that are going on,
Okay.
right? And where the title of the book comes from, Tipping Point, is an idea that we are also working on, which is this idea of non-linearity, right?
Okay.
The idea that you can have a lot of inputs into a system, but suddenly, at some point, that system gives a response.
Okay.
Or there's a sudden change in the system, but before that, there's no change. So the example that I like to give in the kind of very Malaysian context is, when people cook, there's pecah minyak.
Okay.
The oil splits, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, we call it pecah minyak.
yeah, so
Pecah minyak, right.
I think it's a very good example, and because we've also tried to explain this concept.
Okay.
So if let's say let's say it takes 10 minutes to pecah minyak, right? You kind of know through experience that it takes 10 minutes to pecah minyak. Then the smell comes, and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
The oil splits. You can't say at minute 1 into the process that it's 10% pecah minyak. You can't, right? It's only after 10 minutes that suddenly
Pecah minyak.
pecah minyak. So that's the idea of tipping point.
Okay.
That's the idea of non-linearity. You have a lot of these kind of patterns in the human world, and that's something that's also a feature of complex systems that we look at. Yeah.
So why do you think the idea brought about by Gladwell in Tipping Point appeals so much in current realities?
Well, I think of course it's illuminating, first of all, because there are many things that are not really understood unless you realize the non-linearity of things.
Alright.
From a practical perspective, because I also have some background in policy, from a practical perspective, Gladwell's book is in a tradition of books that talks about behavioral psychology.
Yeah.
And Gladwell talks a lot about this, but also books like, for example, by Kerr Sunstein, Nudge, talks about this, about how small changes in some small interventions can really lead to bad effects, right? So, tipping point is the idea that small changes can have big effects, but it also explains why, in many cases, government policy, you can have a lot of inputs into the system, but no effects.
Okay.
But equally, you can have small effects, but also very big, small input, but very big impact, right? So from a practical perspective, that is the value of tipping point, essentially. And
One
books in this
of
tradition.
the major idea inside Tipping Point is the power of context.
Yeah.
Since Gladwell is talking about, based on his observation, which is not necessarily Malaysian in nature. Interestingly, you mentioned about pecah minyak just now. So do you think the power of context, when you discuss about tipping point, you can actually discuss it in the context of your choice? Let's say Malaysian context. So
So for example, going back to pecah minyak, right? And I think when we talk about complex systems, I like to use cooking as an example because it's something that most people are familiar with, and inherently, cooking is it's a very if you think about it, it's actually a complex process. Like for example, if you toast bread, no one really fully understands the chemistry of how every single starch molecule becomes a toasted bread molecule. The Maillard reaction is not fully understood because there's so many different interactions that you can. So similarly, when you think of pecah minyak, right? I'm sure small things like, for example, if you use different kuali, and maybe that's why like mothers and grandmothers are very, very particular about kitchens, right? Because small changes in the context can have big impact. Or even like, for example, if you buy onions from a different source, right? That has an impact on the it's like nasi kandar, right? They always have to buy the onions from a certain source, otherwise the thing doesn't come out right. But if you try to ask them to explain precisely what's the difference, they may not be able to explain it. But the whole point about complex systems is there are many of these things, phenomena in reality, that we do not necessarily understand in a completely, we don't understand it like a machine. We cannot think of it like a machine that we think that, X goes in and then we understand what happens and it comes out, right? There are many of this phenomena.
So let's bring this down to your area of expertise. You mentioned just now about you have passion in policy research, and I think that's what Merbau Institute is also about, right? Tipping point in the context of Malaysian policy research. So how do you apply ideas within this book in the context of Malaysia?
So my background is I have done some work in entrepreneurship policy in Penang before, and I think if you look at economic policy, one policy area which definitely benefits from the sort of ideas in tipping point and generally complex systems is really how to spur entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Because driving entrepreneurship is not the same as driving FDI, for example. The sort of thing about FDI is you have certain kind of tax breaks, right? Then you can bring in certain amount of income FDI in every year, and maybe you have some kind of multiplier that thinks about how much the FDI is going to translate your job. But when you try to drive new businesses, and not just new businesses, but also new businesses that are innovative, that can grow, there is really no recipe.
Okay.
And unfortunately, again, I mean, Gladwell talks a lot about successes, but also in the same tradition, there are books like, for example, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, which is a story about how
failures,
like huge,
You need to experience both, success and failures, for you to understand the context.
It's basically a book about entrepreneurship policy around the world, not just Malaysia, but around the world, how they fail despite billions of money put into them. They fail. I think part of it is the idea that when you're dealing with entrepreneurship networks, and it is a network because entrepreneurs rely on each other, you cannot think of it as a mechanistic system where you put, let's say, $10 million worth of grants, and then you will get a certain effect, right? Maybe a more effective way of doing it is to think, as Gladwell talks about how exactly these networks are organized, right? And Gladwell talks about this in the book, which he talks about, for example, connectors, mavens and salesmen, right? Which are different types of nodes in this network. So connectors are people who are very influential because they know many other nodes in the network. And of course, underlying all of this is we can go deeper into the academics. But one of the things that we're also looking at Institut Merbau is this whole idea of network science, right? How are networks structured? And maybe if we have targeted interventions at the nodes of these networks, so for example, if we do something with the people who are very well connected in the network, or people who are more persuasive, right, as Gladwell talks about, those small interactions can cause cascades of behavior without us putting in much effort. And maybe those are the kind of things that we have to think about. One of the kind of crazy ideas I had was the government always highlights successful entrepreneurs, right? But maybe you should highlight failures as well. Because
things that you can avoid.
Things you can avoid, precisely because if you think about the so-called economic theory of entrepreneurship, or why people are thought to be, it's important to have entrepreneurs, it's because the information about their failures is kind of like, will be widely propagated and everyone will learn from the failures. That's not really the case in real life, because no one wants to talk about failures, right? So actually one intervention that government could do is actually to highlight failures. And maybe tie some grants to failures so that people are willing to come on.
I think it's a common practice nowadays. Big companies, they started asking when they're interviewing candidates, how many failures that you have.
But maybe this is the idea for you side, you can make a program out of this as well. Because the point is they have to actually talk about their failures in public and what they have learned, right? Because I think it inculcates a culture of risk-taking, and it inculcates a culture that failure is okay. And maybe these kind of small changes actually can do more to spur entrepreneurship than
Let's go back to the idea where Gladwell identifies these three functions: connectors, maven, and also salesmen. Where do you see yourself as far as Merbau Institute is concerned? Which part of those nodes
that's a very interesting. Right now we are still at the connector stage. So Gladwell talks about connectors about, number one, they are very well connected. That means in network science also there are two types of connectors. One is just simple people who have a lot of connections, right? The other one is the sense that it's not about the number of connections, but it's about, in a way, the quality of connections. Because it's about whether you can connect people to networks that they are not part of. Right? So you can have very few connections, but because you are in many different groups and you connect the groups with each other, that also is valuable, right? So those are two different senses of connectors. Right now we are in the connector stage because we try to bring people from different disciplines together and try to get them to start a conversation. It's not easy because people are used to talking within their own discipline and within their own silo. Yeah.
So at what point do you think you are now considered to be maven or even salesperson? Can you actually identify, or does that fuzzy logic apply because you don't really know at what point the pecah minyak happens? So suddenly I'm already a maven.
Okay. Well, I think part of what Gladwell talks about in the book as well is about how Sesame Street.
Right. That's the most common anecdote being discussed when discussing about tipping point.
Because I think the whole point about complex systems is there's no fixed recipe.
All right.
You have to basically redah dia, and then every step of the way you kind of you do experiment, you do some analytics, and then you adjust along the way. There is no fixed way to do it lah. I think there's a Chinese proverb actually. It's the idea that if you cross a stream, you have to go stone by stone.
Okay.
Right. There is no easy way. You have to place one stone after the other, and you have to go
one after another
in that way lah. So in terms of whether we are mavens or salesmen, I think we are very interested in the salesman part because also of my...
We as in Merbau Institute.
Yeah, we as in Merbau Institute. Because something that at least I'm interested in is also political psychology.
Yeah.
And Gladwell talks a lot about this in the book, which is about persuasion.
Okay.
Right? And the deep psychology behind persuasion and how very small factors...
Okay.
Gladwell talks about, for example, whether a person smiles more. Gladwell talks about differences, small tweaks in how certain presenters behave, right, on screen, can have a big impact on, let's say, for example, the vote, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very interested in that, and I definitely think that human psychology itself is also a complex system. We don't really fully understand how inputs translate into behaviors. Yeah.
That is one point raised by Gladwell in the book. He talks about this stickiness factor, and he used that to explain how things got viral.
Yeah.
People start disseminating things because that idea sticks.
Yeah.
Perhaps maybe we would like to discuss a bit about communication nowadays in the complexity of narrative building. Partly you're also a politician yourself.
A failed politician.
There you go. You have a feather in your hat. Having one big failure in politics.
Yeah, I can talk about it.
So how do you explain, based on the book itself, the stickiness factor when it comes to trying to persuade people to understand the narratives that you want?
I think Gladwell, this book was written in the 2000s.
Yeah.
So actually,
quite some time already.
Quite some time, and but I think the message is even more relevant today.
Okay.
Because I think many of the emerging trends that he mentioned in the book. So, for example, the media is becoming more and more fragmented.
Yeah.
Well, fragmented is kind
Nobody
of
is controlling the narratives nowadays.
Yeah.
Not even CNN, not even BBC.
Yeah.
Deficit trust. We don't trust anyone.
Yeah. So in this kind of situation, it's not a problem of lack of information, but it's almost too much information, right?
Okay.
And Gladwell talks about
overload.
The key about stickiness is that it's not just delivering the message, but making sure that it actually sticks, right? So he has, of course, a few examples. Like, for example, he has created a competition, anyway, he's almost like Find a Waldo, where he cites this example of a brand trying to sell more of its product. And rather than doing the typical kind of ads, this other agency did a kind of competition where it's actually more effortful, right? So the idea that in advertising that you make it as easy as possible for the consumer has some truth and some value, but it's not entirely true, right? Okay. There are some cases, and this is very interesting, there are some cases where you actually make it a bit harder than you need to, where the consumer actually has to put in effort. That actually tends to stick more in people's brains than if you just make it completely easy, right?
Yeah.
So in Gladwell's case, he cited the example of a brand who created this competition where, I mean, it's a story from the 60s, I think, where, you know, it was all magazine advertising, right? But rather than having like the typical full page ad, you have almost like a search in the magazine for a secret code kind of competition, and that really drove sales. I mean, I'm personally very interested in this, and I also maybe can highlight that another author that also follows in this tradition is this guy called Rory Sutherland.
Okay.
He is
And the title of the book?
Alchemy.
Okay.
Alchemy, because he is, I think he heads the behavioral science practice at Ogilvy,
Okay.
one of the biggest ad agencies in the world. And he also talks a lot about this tradition where sometimes certain things that are counterintuitive and don't really make sense actually can have big impacts.
The way how I see this book is, what is interesting about the approach set by Malcolm Gladwell in the book is basically, I don't know whether we should call it deduction or induction, you know? Because the framework that we used to work on is, you should go step by step, 1, 2, 3, and then you get the result. But now
but that assumes that there is a recipe, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. So now things are so fuzzy. You don't really know where to start. It's just that what he's advising in the book, you have to push yourself, you know, with those analogy, being connectors, being maven, and also either being a salesperson to make an impact in life. So if anyone who hasn't read Tipping Point, or perhaps even Outliers and Blink, and you have chosen to start with Tipping Point, how should you approach Gladwell's books?
Okay, I think Gladwell is sometimes unfairly criticized because he may not be as academically rigorous.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But you know, as I think it was Hayek who said that intellectuals don't even have to be original. For him, an intellectual is a second-hand dealer of ideas.
Okay.
Like a used car dealer, right?
Yeah.
Used car
As
salesman.
long as you can sell.
You have an idea. What's the point? What's the important part is actually selling the idea. So Gladwell, you know, I think people shouldn't be. To be fair to him, he's not trying to, you know, and he admits these are not his ideas. They are ideas written by, for example, people in network science like Barabasi, you know. But the point is that he popularizes the ideas. And once you start with Gladwell, it's a good introduction to many different ideas about behavioral psychology, nonlinearity, complex systems, and all these books. So, you know, maybe we can even have a series about these books. In this
can I say that his
tradition,
approach in writing is not methodological?
No, it's not methodological at all because it's basically a book of anecdotes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he tried to make sense of all these fuzzy anecdotes.
But you know, I don't blame him for that because it's something that people who are also definitely much more smarter than me are also trying to grapple with. There is an institute called the Santa Fe Institute in the US. If you watch the film Oppenheimer?
Yeah.
So
one
it's
of
the desert,
the
right?
movies that I watched. Yeah.
So it's desert, right? And all these top scientists in the US and also from around the world were gathered there. So the Santa Fe Institute was set up by many of these scientists who were at the Los Alamos laboratory of atomic science. And they are Nobel Prize winners. And the focus of this Santa Fe Institute is like Institute Merbau, looking at complex systems. Of course, they are a lot more intelligent than we are, so they do a lot of fundamental research that we try to apply here. But they are also still working. There is no fixed definition of what complex system is. They are still figuring out what is the underlying patterns under everything. So I think Gladwell's book should be just seen as an introduction. It's very readable. And people should definitely go deeper if they want to.
Since we raised this issue of complex system quite a number of times since the last 20 minutes or so, right? It seems like this approach of not being methodological works in trying to explain things. And that happens, I think, quite a number of times. Even Gladwell in Outliers and Blink, more or less, it's the same way of trying to explain things which normally don't understand, but he managed to connect the dot. I think does this kind of writing explains reality better?
I think it provokes questions about reality, but I'm not sure if it's fair to expect from the book that it explains reality. I think it's just a provocation. It's just a series of provocations, right?
Or perhaps maybe life itself is just a simulation.
maybe. I think let me get back on that.
Okay.
Let me get back because
On the simulation part.
yeah, because there's the metaphor by Isaiah Berlin, right? Isaiah Berlin, who talks about the difference between he's an English philosopher, so he talks about this in the English context, which is the difference between a hedgehog and a fox.
Okay.
Right. A hedgehog has one view of the world. Sebab a hedgehog lives in his burrow, kan?
Yeah.
So I don't know, in Malaysia it's probably like
You can just see one
what's the equivalent of
perspective.
what's the equivalent of hedgehog? Tenggiling goat, right?
Tenggiling.
Tenggiling.
No, I don't think tenggiling is hedgehog.
Okay, tenggiling.
What is hedgehog? Bahasa Melayu apa? Hedgehog.
But an animal that lives underground. Tenggiling doesn't live in
No, it's not
tanah,
tenggiling.
Okay. or worm lah, kan.
And this is Telaah,
Yeah, sebab a worm lives underground.
Right.
If kalau it looks out from underground pun, it only has one view of the world, kan. But that view can be very deep, tapi it's still one view of the world.
Right.
There's another type of thinker called foxes. Foxes. They
move
go all
around.
over the place, and they may not have a very deep, very rigorous view of the world, but they see many things, right? They have many experiences. So Gladwell is definitely in the foxes category.
Okay.
Tapi I think you
Because
need
he's
both.
a writer, he's a journalist, right? He writes a lot.
He needs both, and you need to have that healthy interaction between the two, right? Yeah. I mean, Nassim Taleb, whose book is also in Telaah's book list.
Yeah.
He also talks about how you need to have
You want
both.
to come back for the book?
No.
Maybe your members
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
club that you're organizing,
yeah.
they can come back and discuss that book.
Yeah. So the point about life as a simulation is because the surprising thing is, in a way, one surprising question is, why is the world so complex, or why are there phenomena?
Which you don't understand.
Yeah, we don't understand that Gladwell picks up, picks up in his book. I think it provoked deep questions about the nature of the world, because one view of the world is we have advanced very far in our understanding of physics, mathematics, biology, right? That there is a view that potentially, maybe not now, but maybe very soon in the future, with assisted AI or not, you can kind of, from the basic principles of physics, you can kind of build up to a full understanding of the world.
Yeah.
So from physics, you can understand chemistry. From chemistry, you can understand biology. From biology, you can understand psychology, and then from psychology, you can understand like social sciences, lah.
Yeah.
Right? You can kind of first principles and like you say, deduce everything from first principles. But I think there is people with complex science talk about this, that there are some things that you can't deduce from first principles.
Okay.
Maybe, there's the kind of theological question about whether this whole world is created by a creator or simulation by an alien, essentially, right? But even if you think that there is no creator, there is still room to think that you can't understand the world fully from first principles, because at certain levels, higher levels, certain things that will just emerge, right? Just like how life kind of just emerged. I mean, back then there was physics, there was chemistry, but somehow life emerged from.
So given that complexity,
nothing,
who do you
yeah.
think we need more in today's world? Connectors, maven, or salesperson? Connectors, I suppose?
Well, I think you need all three of them, right?
Yeah.
All three of them, right?
They have their own function, but who
Yeah.
do we need more?
Well, definitely, I would say, connectors is one, but connectors of the second type, which
Okay.
is people who can almost cross different, who can straddle different groups.
Right.
Yeah, who can straddle different groups.
Okay.
I think that's of value and probably.
So who are you going to bring to Telaah next time around?
I have a few people in mind.
Yeah.
One of them is my junior at university.
Okay.
She runs
Yes.
the
Bring them over. We have some biscuits for them.
she runs She runs the student society.
Okay.
She's
Yes,
bossy.
please.
So I mean, but I've not. I will probably have to have a longer discussion with you about
Never
the
mind.
curation
We always
of the,
welcome collaborations
the,
with
the curation of
book
this.
lovers. Yeah.
Yeah.
We try to curate the list of books
Yeah.
so that it's meaningful
Yeah.
and we call it membina fikrah, membina
Yeah.
pemikiran. You know? So we
Yeah.
discuss about all these substantive book rather than
Yeah.
just purely popular sensational books.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming to the
Yeah.
show. Thank you. This
Yeah.
is Telaah.
Yeah.
You are most
Great.
welcome.
Yeah.
Come anytime. Dan kepada penonton juga boleh mencadangkan sekali lagi berkolaborasi, bukan hanya dengan SHAUN tapi ramai lagi semua. Jika anda ada cadangan, kita boleh saja berkolaborasi. We have reality show, you know, in our pipeline.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be interesting. We're going to debate. Kita panggil debat buku.
Okay.
We choose one particular book and we debate about the book from different angles.
Great.
That's going to be
Great.
a different talk show altogether.
Great.
Thank you once again, SHAUN.
Great.
Terima kasih kepada
Thanks,
semua yang
man.
menonton. Kita jumpa lagi. Assalamualaikum.